Today I'm going to review the ZHIYUN X100 RGB Light Cam Mackie Edition, which ZHIYUN sent me for free in exchange of making this video. With that said, let's start with the price. So this light starts at $270 for the standard edition. In this edition, you'll get obviously the light fixture itself, a USB-C cable, a small carrying pouch, and also an AC adapter to basically power on this light from the wall. Now, if you want more accessories, there is also the Pro Edition at $450. It comes with a bones mount adapter to basically mount your bones mount accessories to this light, a portable battery which allows you to power on this light without having to plug it to the wall, a compact Fresnel with magnetic barn doors to increase the light output and also control the beam of light at the same time. A compact softbox that basically softens the light and also allows you to further control the beam of light. And finally, a compact travel carrying case to carry all of this equipment with you when traveling around. Now, additionally, for extra $100, you'll be able to get this mini Snoot adapter, which will allow you to control the beam of light a bit more precisely and at the same time shape the light with different gobos. It comes with 10 different gobos to precisely adjust the shape of the light to whatever you want. Links to everything is going to be down below. Obviously, this is not a budget option, but you do get a lot of accessories, and at the same time, the quality of this light is extremely good in my personal opinion. Moving on to design, let's start with build quality. I think the build quality of this light is absolutely fantastic. It is made of plastic, but everything feels very solid and premium. This part actually is metal to cool down the light. And also here on the back, you have like a nice leather-like texture, which makes this light look a bit more like a vintage camera, if you will. And also, as you can see, it is extremely compact. Here is how it compares to my iPhone 16 Pro Max. Almost the same size, honestly. And at the same time, it is extremely lightweight. Let's put it on the scale. Only 392 grams, which is super lightweight for a 100-watt light, basically. Now, moving on, here in front, you have the ZHIYUN proprietary mount. But of course, if you get the Pro Edition, you will get the bones mount adapter, which will allow you to basically mount bones mount accessories to this light without any issues. This is how it looks like. By the way, you have like a light stand mount in here, then the ZHIYUN mount in here, and of course the bones mount in front. It also has this reflector, mini reflector kind of, and you can of course adjust the angle however you like. All right, now let's move on to power, where in my opinion this light shines the most because it is so versatile. So first of all, obviously you can power on this light with the included AC adapter. This is how it looks like. The cable is pretty long. It's about 3 meters to 4 meters, something like that. It is pretty long, but as you can see, it is also bulky at the same time. But then of course, if you get the Pro Edition, you will get this battery, which you can quickly plug into the light and then basically turn it on, as you can see. But also, if you have one of these power bricks from your smartphone or laptop, you'll be able to power on this light with them, basically. This one is 20 watts, 65 watts, and 100 watts. Let's test all of them out with this light. I'm gonna start with a 20-watt brick. Just plug it to the wall for a cable, and then plug it to the light and turn it on. As you can see, it works perfectly fine, but you will be limited with the output to only 18% with the 20 watts. Right now I'm using the RGB light and it doesn't go above 18%. All right, so now I'm using the 65-watt brick, and if I'm going to increase the brightness, I'll be able to go as high as 65% basically. And finally, let's try the 100-watt brick, which theoretically should provide all of the output this light can handle, basically. Let's try to go to 100%. As you can see, it goes to 100% of brightness without any issues. So as you can see, this light is extremely versatile when it comes to power. You can either use the included AC adapter and power on this light forever pretty much from the wall, but it is a bit bulky and cumbersome. If you want to make it a bit more compact, you can get one of these GAN 100-watt power bricks and basically use a simple USB-C to USB-C cable this is significantly more compact than using like the AC adapter. And then if you want to make it a bit more portable, you can get like a power bank that can output 100 watts, something for your laptop and whatnot. And this will be compatible also with this light. Or if you are going to get the Pro Edition, you're going to get this power bank battery, if you will, which you can plug to the light directly and basically power it on. But the battery life on this is not going to be that long. Maybe you'll get like 30 minutes, 25-30 minutes at 100% output. Now, when it comes to operation, this light is super simple to operate. If you want to turn it on, you're just going to press this button and it is basically going to turn on. I'm going to reduce the brightness to 1% just to make it a bit easier to see. So with this dial in here, you'll be able to control the parameter on the side, right? Like the intensity basically, or the color temperature. And with this dial, you'll be able to switch between different settings. So maybe I want to adjust the CCT. So I'm going to cycle to the CCT mode in here and then adjust the color with the dial in here. It goes from 2500 Kelvin all the way to 10,000 Kelvin, as you can see. And then I can also adjust the green and magenta tint if I want to precisely adjust the color of the light to my room ambience, if you will. And then if you're going to click the select button in here, the dial, it's going to cycle between different light modes like HSI, basically RGB. Here's the intensity, the colors. Let's do like red. Okay, and then in here the saturation. And then here you also have RGB. Let's say I want to make it a bit more green, so I'm going to subtract red. And then let's make it a bit more yellow by subtracting blue. So now it's going to be like green, yellow, if you will. And then in here also you can control the brightness. Next you have the effects. Also be able to adjust the intensity or brightness for each effect. And then in here it's the speed of the effect. And finally the color of the effect, if you will. So maybe I want to make it warmer or cooler. I can do it in here. And then you have these music effects if you're using that. And finally here is the menu. You have the language. You have the Bluetooth reset if you want to use it with your phone. And then live mode, which is pretty cool. If I'm going to turn it on and click, right? And then I'm going to turn off my socket. So here I have my socket. Let me turn the light off. And then turn it on again. It should turn on automatically, as you can see. Which is very handy if you're going to be in a studio environment like I am and you don't want to reach for the red button basically to turn the light on. But also if you want to control the light from your phone, you can download the ZHIYUN Vega application and basically connect to your light. It is super quick. I have two ZHIYUN lights at the moment, X200 and X100. Let me click on the X100 and then I'll be able to control the brightness, of course, color temperature, RGB, and all the stuff you can control inside the light. You'll be able to do it basically with a smartphone application. Now, before I move on to brightness and output, I want to mention that the fan on this light is extremely silent. It is barely noticeable even in a quiet environment. If you want to use this light for like filming interviews or something like that, the fan will not be an issue. It is extremely silent, actually more silent than my 20 watt small rig flashlight, which is right there right now, and I can definitely hear its fan. But this light has extremely quiet fan, so it's not going to be distracting when using it in a quiet environment. Now, when it comes to output, I've tested this light with my lux meter. I've positioned the light 1 meter away from the lux meter, and I completely darkened my room basically to make it as accurate as possible. And here are the results that I got. So I'm just using the light itself with no adapters and whatnot. I got 2500 lux with a 2500 Kelvin volume, and then I got 4130 lux with a 5500 Kelvin temperature, and finally I got 4400 lux with a 10,000 Kelvin temperature. So at higher color temperatures is going to be a bit brighter. And then I mounted the Fresnel, and with the Fresnel I got significantly brighter output. With 2500 Kelvin I got 10,000 lux, which is basically 4 times brighter than without the Fresnel. And then with 5500 Kelvin I got 17,000 lux, which is about 3.5 times brighter than without the Fresnel. And with 10,000 Kelvin, I got 18,300 lux, which is about, again, 3.5 times brighter than without the Fresnel. Also, I tried this light with the Snoot without any gobos inside, just to see if it reduces the output of the light. And I got pretty much identical results to without using anything. I got 2500 lux with 2500 Kelvin, and then 4200 lux with 5500 Kelvin, and 4460 lux with 10,000 Kelvin. So if you want the brightest output from this light, you'll definitely want to use the Fresnel. But I think, honestly, even without the Fresnel, it is bright enough considering the size of this light. In some situations, you'll also be able to use this light, honestly, as a key light. But if you want to make it as bright as possible, obviously, you're going to have to use the Fresnel and then basically bounce the light from something back onto your subject. But I think, again, for its size, I think it is pretty bright. It is not dim at all. All right, you know what? Let me just set up a couple of shots with my Sony camera using this light, and then maybe I'm going to switch to my pocket camera just to show you how this light works in a real shooting scenario, if you will. All right, so this is going to be my base shot. I'm not using any artificial lights at the moment. I just have the windows open, basically, and then I have in here the diffusion sheet from my 5-in-1 reflector just to soften the light a little bit more, and that's basically it. And because of this, as you can see, the shot looks pretty flat and boring. There is no really like contrast or anything like that. It looks really boring. And at the same time, I had to raise my ISO on my camera to 12,800 to get, you know, proper exposure, because I am also overexposing to the right. So let me turn on the ZHIYUN X100 RGB and basically show you how I'm going to improve this shot. All right, so I switched to my action camera just because it has a really wide angle lens. But anyway, this is the X100 RGB on a light stand. And then in front of it, I have the Fresnel attachment and the barn doors just to be able to control the beam of light a bit better, to not spill too much light into the background behind me. And then in front of the light, I have a 5-in-1 120 centimeters reflector. I'm only using the diffusion part of it. And then in front of this diffusion, I have another same diffusion 120 centimeters just to double diffuse the light to make it even softer. And then between these diffusions, I have the negative field part of these 5-in-1 reflectors on the outside, as you can see, just to reduce spill again as much as possible into the background. So let me turn on the light and see how it looks like. As you can see right now, the shot looks way too overexposed because I turned on the light. So I'm going to reduce the ISO to 640, which is the base ISO of my camera, to reduce noise. And now let's see if the exposure is correct. Yeah, it seems correct. Maybe I can brighten it up a little bit. I'm going to go to the ZHIYUN application and just slightly increase the brightness to 67%, maybe slightly higher. Let's do 75%, 74%. This looks now better, right? And again, I am double diffusing the light to make it even softer, but I think this looks significantly more complementing than the light before without using the ZHIYUN X100, because it basically makes me brighter than the background, which in return separates me more from the background, makes the shot a little bit more interesting. But now let me close the windows completely and see if I can make the shot even better. All right, let's close the window blinds. Close this. All right, so this is how it looks like with the blinds closed. As you can see, the background is significantly darker at the moment, which is maybe what you want. But I would say if you want to make it a bit more interesting, you would need like an extra light just to do something in the background to separate you more again from the background. And I am going to use one of these newer flashlights. They are pretty cheap, like $50–60. They're colorful. You can do any colors you want. So let me try just different colors. I'm just going to mount it here on the side and maybe use one of the gobos of this light to make like a shape in the background. All right, so right now I have this shape behind me from the newer flashlight, and I think this looks significantly more interesting than how we started with. We're just using the windows basically to light myself. So as you can see, lighting makes a huge difference, and this X100 light from ZHIYUN is definitely bright enough to even, light myself in here with dual layers of diffusion, and I am exposing to the light by 2 stops. So I need to use more output from the light. At the moment it's set to 75% because again, I am exposing to the light, but I think this shot, looks fantastic considering I'm only using like a key light in here and also the newer flashlight, and that's basically it. And maybe, this tube light behind me, if you will. But now let me switch to my pocket camera, which requires more output, to show you how that looks like if you're using one of the pocket cameras from DJI or Insta360. All right, so right now I'm using the DJI Pocket 4P with D-Log 2 and ISO 1600, and I'm still using the same lighting setup as before with the ZHIYUN X100 as the key light with the dual diffusion setup, and then the newer light as my background light basically. And I think this is totally usable. Again, considering I'm just using basically 2 lights in here. One light is my key light, and then the other light is my background light, if you will. Of course, we can make it more interesting with more lights introduced, but I try to keep it as minimal and simple as possible. So I think this is it for today. If you are interested in the ZHIYUN X100 light, I will leave links for it down below. I'm definitely going to keep this one because it is so compact and lightweight, and I can pretty much mount it anywhere in the room, maybe to create like a shape in the background or to elevate the light ambience in the room. So it is very practical compared to my bigger fixtures. Like for example, I have this Godox SL60W that I use for like backup in case if I need more light somewhere, but it is very hard to mount in like smaller spaces because as you can see, it is pretty much as big as my head, and the X100 is significantly smaller and maybe even brighter than this Godox SL60. So anyhow, hopefully you found this video to be informative and useful. Let me know what you think down below, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye, and thanks for watching.